All right, before we get into this, like I said, it is the most talked about prophecy in the entire Bible, and hardly anybody talks about it, which is really mind-blowing. I don't understand that. I think people just get scared because it's complex. There's so many scriptures, it's easy to get lost. But we have the 70 Shabua timeline. We have really crystal clear understandings of what Yeshua said in Matthew 24, Luke 21, Mark 13. We, here on this channel, we have really laid a solid foundation from which to then really, start to dissect this prophecy in a manner that I think is really going to be a blessing for you. So let's go ahead and set the intention right now. I urge you, please remove the distractions, okay? Let's set the intention. I want you to get, do your best to get 2 or 3 really big nuggets of gold from this presentation. It's going to be a lot as far as details, but just I encourage you to get 2 or 3 things that you can really, unpack in your mind, write down for later and study. And then come back to this as needed. But, just try to get 2 or 3 really solid things from this and try not to overwhelm yourself because it can be overwhelming. With that being said, let's dive into it. So I'm going to start in a very unusual place with this topic that most people would not start with. But it just so happens that there's a massive connection that has been shown to me from Daniel 9:24. Okay. And we've read this so many times on the podcast. Let's just read it one more time. 70 weeks are determined for your people and for your holy city, to finish the transgression, to make an end of sins, to make reconciliation for iniquity, to bring in everlasting righteousness, to seal up vision and prophecy, and to anoint the most holy. So actually what we're going to be talking about right now is that reconciliation for iniquity, because if you look into this, it's a mystery. We know it's going to be finished at the end of the 70th Shabua, which we're living in right now. It ends in Aviv 2045. But what exactly is this reconciliation for iniquity? And actually, it occurred to me that this is found within the New Covenant prophecy that Yeshua himself initiated at the Lord's Supper right before he was crucified. He initiated this, okay? But it wasn't fulfilled. So many people like to say that this was fulfilled. The new covenant. Oh, it's fulfilled. It's so great. We're living in the new covenant. We're a new covenant, New Testament church. Everybody says that. All the seminaries. But let's take a look at it, and you're going to find out that no, it's been initiated, but it's not fulfilled 100%. There's no way. So look at Luke 22:19 with me, okay? Luke 22:19. And he took the bread, gave thanks, and broke it, and gave it to them, saying, "This is my body, which is given for you. Do this in remembrance of me." Likewise, he took also the cup after supper, saying, "This cup is the new covenant in my blood, which is shed for you." When he says that, when Yeshua says, "This is the new cup of the new covenant in my blood," so many people gloss over that. He's not just making that up out of thin air. He was quoting Jeremiah the prophet. Let's take a look at it. Jeremiah 31:31. "Behold, the days are coming, says Yehovah, when I will make a new covenant," there it is, "with the house of Israel and with the house of Judah." Okay, this is super key. Look who he's making the new covenant with. We'll dive into this a lot more. This has to do with the regathering. It might not seem like it does, but it definitely has a lot to do with the regathering or second Exodus. "Not according to the covenant that I made with their fathers in the day that I took them by the hand to lead them out of the land of Egypt, my covenant which they broke, though I was a husband to them, says Yehovah. But this is the covenant that I will make with the house of Israel after those days, says Yehovah. I will put my Torah," law, it's translated in English as law, but it's Torah, "in their minds. They're my instructions that Moses wrote down and the prophets wrote down in their minds, and write it on their hearts, and I will be their God, and they shall be my people. No more shall every man teach his neighbor, and every man his brother, saying, Know Yehovah, for they all shall know me, from the least of them to the greatest of them, says Yehovah. For I will forgive their iniquity and their sin I will remember no more." That's it. That's the secret right at the very end of the new covenant that has not been 100% fulfilled yet. You see it. I will forgive their iniquity and their sin I will remember no more. That's the reconciliation. Now, let's look at Jeremiah 31:31 again, because it says, "Behold, the days are coming. I will make a new covenant with the house of Israel, house of Judah." Let me ask you the obvious question here. Does it say house of Gentiles? Does it say house of pagans? Does it say house of heathen? House of the church? Church of Gentiles? House of Christians? House of Catholics? House of Protestants? Okay. No, it absolutely does not say any of that, but everybody wants to be part of this new covenant because they love Jesus, or they say they love Jesus. And so we need to figure this out. We really got to figure this out. You and I need to figure out where we fit into this new covenant. What is our identity in this new covenant? You have to know this if you want to be a disciple of the kingdom of heaven. You have to understand that. So in order to understand the new covenant, you must understand the two olive trees. The two olive trees. And you know what? I didn't even realize this until I put this presentation together. It's not mentioned once. It's not mentioned twice. It's not mentioned 3 times. It's mentioned 4 times in Ezekiel, Zechariah, Revelation, and Romans. We'll talk about this more in a second. The 2 olive trees. But let's go back to that. For I will forgive their iniquity, okay? Again, people say this was all, 70 weeks is all done, all fulfilled. So a lot of camps of churches teach that. The ones that are waiting for the 70th week, I'm not sure exactly. There's all these different interpretations about what this means. But I'm gonna show you really strongly that this is talking about the regathering and how their sin is going to be atoned for in a very unique and specific way when Israel is gathered back into the land once and for all, and they're going to be at peace. I'm going to show you all of that. It's going to be super, super key. But yeah, people are still teaching their brothers, saying, know the Lord. People are still, the Torah is not written on anybody's heart like it should be. We all need to still study, the Greek and Hebrew, and go back to the Strong's Concordances. This is not the easiest, most straightforward thing to open up a Bible and understand every single word in it. It requires being a student. It requires being a scholar. So this new covenant written on our hearts, the Torah written on our hearts, it just hasn't happened yet, okay? Let's just be honest here. And so this is going to be, again, this is all going to happen at a future date. And we're told 70 weeks are determined, and all this is going to happen. Okay, so remember, we have to talk about Daniel's people. In order to understand really what we're going to be talking about today with the regathering, you have to understand the scattering first, right? How can you understand the gathering if you don't even understand the scattering? And that's the problem with the majority, like 99% of mainstream Christian churches and seminaries, you name it, they just don't even understand the scattering. So how can they understand the regathering, which they think was already fulfilled in 1948 with the UN-created state of Israel? It's just not true. Not even close. So let's take a look at what happened. So there was under 3 kings, there was a united Israel for a very short period of history. King number 1, you all know him, Saul. I forget which prophet says that Saul was selected because Jehovah was angry. In his wrath, he chose Saul to be a leader that was harsh over the people. He sinned and did wickedly, so David succeeded him. Okay, that's the 2nd king. Then Solomon reigned, and he ruled over united Israel, north and south, but Solomon did wickedly. Then Rehoboam took his place, and he was also ridiculous, and he said, I'm going to make the burden even stronger and the yoke even crazier than my dad. I'm going to tax you guys to death. So, the people revolted. 10 tribes went to the north, 2 remained in the south under Jeroboam and Rehoboam, and Jeroboam took over the northern kingdom, which was 10 tribes. And make no mistake, these are 2 distinct people groups. The house of Israel in the north and the house of Judah in the south, these are 2 distinct people groups. They almost went to war as soon as this happened. There was almost civil war, but God put an end to it. He's like, no, you're not gonna go to civil war because this is from me. I am splitting up the kingdom into north and south because of their sin. I'm going to do it. And Jeroboam, what's one of the first things Jeroboam does? The northern king. He sets up golden calves in Bethel, and I forget where the other one was, but I think it was Samaria. He set up golden calves for them to worship, saying, these are the gods that brought you out of Egypt. So the northern 10 tribes immediately went to paganism and idolatry. And the whole reason Jeroboam did it is because I don't want them going to Jerusalem to worship there, just in case they might forsake me. So it was a power trip. He's like, I might lose my kingdom, I might lose my kingship, so I'm gonna put up golden calves in the northern kingdom for the people to worship. They're not gonna go to Jerusalem like they're supposed to, according to the scriptures. So these are 2 distinct people groups. Make no mistake about it. That's just the way it was from ancient times. And so when the Assyrians came by, let's take a look at this big map. This is the Assyrian Empire that lasted from 911 to 609 BC, and the house of Israel started to fall to Assyria in 731 BC. Assyria did try to attack the southern kingdom in 701, but was not successful. They were not successful. And look what I have here on the screen. I have a red arrow, a red circle. Judah, look at the kingdom of Assyria. It swallowed, it engulfed, it conquered everything except Judah. They did not conquer Judah. There's a lot of fake, what do you say, fake history? I almost said fake news, but fake history out there talking about how Judah was conquered by Assyria. It's just not true. That's not what the scriptures say at all. And this is an accurate map from Wikipedia. Judah was never conquered by Assyria. And so the northerners were. The northern kingdom was conquered by Assyria. This was prophesied. And so look at the bottom right corner of this map. They were in Assyria, right? And what you can find from artifacts, from all these historical writings, from just doing historical research that's not really that hard. We have the internet now. You'll find that the northerners in Assyria, the house of Israel, they eventually became wanderers among the Gentiles, just like Hosea prophesied. I'm going to jump into that more. But they went through Galatia, which is why Paul wrote the letter to the Galatians. Paul said, I am an apostle to the Gentiles. He was talking about the Israelite Gentiles, because that's who they were trying to reach. Everybody, Peter was trying to reach them. Everybody was trying to reach them. James, to the diaspora, I'm writing these things. And Hebrews, to the scattered among the nations. All the New Testament writers were trying to reach the diaspora, the house of Israel, the Israelite Gentiles. Jesus himself said, I did not come except for the lost sheep of the house of Israel. Right? So they went through Galatia. You can see all the arrows here. They went through in between the Black Sea and Caspian Sea. They went to the Caucasus Mountains, Scythia. They eventually went to Europe, all of Europe. Iberian Peninsula, Scotia, UK, Britain, the Saxons. There's a lot of lost Israelite blood, those 10 tribes, in the Saxons. So all the Anglo-Saxons, Northern Africa even. And then guess what? They all went to the New World from Portugal, Spain, in the English-speaking nations. And so there you have Canada, you have the United States, and so it just goes on and on and on. Once you understand this map, and study all these things for yourself, you're going to understand, wow, this is, first of all, hidden history because the mainstream doesn't touch it, but it's actually not hard to understand, and that's why Paul wrote letters to Greece. That's why he was in Rome. You know what I mean? That's why he was in Galatia. Like, Paul was actively reaching, because he was an apostle to the Gentiles, he was actively reaching with his PhD mind, the lost sheep of the house of Israel. They never returned from captivity. You have to understand that. And so when we look at the southern kingdom, though, it's a little different story. From 586 BC, they were conquered by Nebuchadnezzar. And this is the Babylonian Empire around that time. This is what it looks like on the map. And it was big. It was a really big empire. They conquered everything. I mean, it got even bigger. They went down to Egypt. And it's just a really big empire. But remember, the southerners came back after 70 years. According to Jeremiah in 29:10, it's so clear. The southerners, from Jerusalem and Judah, they all came back, not all of them, but they came back. They were allowed to return from captivity after 70 years. It's not that long, right? Think about the last 70 years of United States, Canadian, wherever you happen to be. Think about the last 70 years of history. That's really not a long period of time. So they were able to go back under Nehemiah. They did the whole second temple, and everything was just started over again, and it was really cool. So that was all allowed to happen. But the northerners were lost. So you will know them by their crests, is what I have here on the slide. And again, you'll understand, once you understand Genesis 49 and the connection to all these crests, that Jacob, when he pronounces the blessings, he gives all the tribes, all his sons, identity. And, Reuben is unstable water. He gives, the Lion of Judah, he gives all of these symbols which become the emblems. They become the insignia of the nation of Israel, but all the different tribes within the nation of Israel, all 12 tribes. So let's, I'm not going to spend too much time here, but let's look at these, because I think, it just helps. I mean, I already showed you where they all went, the northerners and everything, but just look at Manasseh here on the screen, okay? You have the United States. It has the olive branch. It has the arrows of Manasseh. It has the eagle of Dan. Again, and then look at Ephraim. Let's just look at Ephraim for a second. You have the United Kingdom. The United Kingdom with basically the unicorn, the horse unicorn, and you have Canada as well. And so you see Ephraim, you see these emblems. You study Genesis 49. You look throughout history, and it all starts to make sense. It all starts to make sense. For a deeper dive on this, I highly recommend Joseph Dumond. He has a podcast and did a teaching, like, I can't remember how many episodes, like 10, 12 episodes. about the 12 tribes of Israel. It's a lot of content. It's very, very well done. 2300 Days of Hell, his book, also does a really good job. Steven Spikerman, Yardavidi, Camria, artists and publishers. Jim Staley even does a decent job. He helps understand some prophecies and stuff like that, and identity crisis. But if you want a deeper dive, you can go look at that stuff. So let's get into really the heart of the message here, the 2 olive trees of Ezekiel. Now, you might be wondering, well, what the heck? I never saw 2 olive trees in Ezekiel. Well, when I unpack this for you, you're going to see that's exactly what it is. Because if we look at Ezekiel 37:15, here's what it says. Again, the word of Yehovah came to me, saying, As for you, son of man, take a stick for yourself and write on it for Judah and for the children of Israel, his companions. Then take another stick and write on it for Joseph, the stick of Ephraim, and for all the house of Israel and his companions. Then join them one to another for yourself into one stick, and they will become one in your hand. And when the children of your people speak to you, saying, will you not show us what you mean by these? Say to them, Thus says Yehovah Elohim, surely I will take the stick of Joseph, which is in the hand of Ephraim, and the tribes of Israel, his companions, and I will join them with it, the stick of Judah, and make them one stick. They will be one in my hand, and the sticks on which you write will be in your hand before their eyes. Then say to them, Thus says Yehovah Elohim, surely I will take the children of Israel from among the nations wherever they have gone, and will gather them from every side and bring them into their own land. And I will make them one nation in the land on the mountains of Israel, and one king shall be over them all. They shall no longer be 2 nations, nor shall they ever be divided into 2 kingdoms again. They shall not defile themselves any more with their idols, nor with their detestable things, nor with any of their transgressions, but I will deliver them from all their dwelling places in which they have sinned, and will cleanse them. Oh, you see that reconciliation of iniquity there again with Daniel 9:24. Then they shall be my people, and I will be their God. Okay, that's all basically what I want to cover from Ezekiel 37, the 2 sticks. But when you look at the word stick, it's actually a little different in the Hebrew, because when you look at the word stick, Strong's 6086, that's 6086, it's actually translated as tree 162 times, and it's translated as stick 14 times. So what do you think it is? You think it's sticks, or do you think it's trees? Now, the problem is we're looking at a case of translator's bias. When the translators don't necessarily understand something, they'll translate it in a way where it just makes the most sense for them at the time. And quite frankly, what the translators missed here in any Bible, I think any Bible says stick, is that the translators didn't understand the other prophecies that are exactly the same as this in Zechariah, Revelation, and Romans. It's literally the exact same symbolism. These trees are the 2 olive trees of Ezekiel. They're 2 trees. Why do you think that people are like, show us what you mean by this? Now, well, you might be wondering, well, how did Ezekiel have 2 trees in his hand? Well, if you've ever, I have olive trees, growing. Well, they're not in my greenhouse right now. I'm about to plant them soon, but when you have olive trees that are small, like seedling stage, like not seedling, but even if they're not 100% mature yet, you can actually hold those olive trees no problem, one in one hand and one in the other, right? And so when they saw him holding 2 olive trees and then they became one in his hand, it makes sense that they're like, oh, they're a little perplexed by that. If it's just 2 sticks, I don't know, there's really not a whole lot of meaning and symbolism there like the Bible really shows us. So the 2 olive trees, we have the house of Israel on the left, on my diagram, and we have the house of Judah on the right. And what we're being shown here is that they're going to become one nation, one king, and their sin is going to be cleansed. Again, that connection to Daniel 9:24. The 2 olive trees of Zechariah are a little bit different, though. And what you're going to find here, I think, is going to be very interesting. Let's start in Zechariah chapter 4, verse 1. Now the angel who talked with me came back and wakened me, as a man who is wakened out of his sleep. And he said to me, What do you see? So I said, I am looking, and there is a lampstand of solid gold with a bowl on top of it, and on the stand 7 lamps with 7 pipes to the 7 lamps. 2 olive trees are by it, one at the right of the bowl, and the other is at the left. Then I answered and said, and so let's go ahead and skip to verse 11. Okay, there's a little break in the thought here of the 2 olive trees. I'm just going to skip to verse 11. Then I answered and said to him, What are these 2 olive trees at the right of the lampstand and at its left? And I further answered and said to him, what are these 2 olive branches that drip into the receptacles of the 2 gold pipes from which the golden oil drains? Then he answered me and said, do you not know what these are? And I said, no, my Lord. So he said, these are the 2 anointed ones who stand beside the Lord of the whole earth. So Zechariah clearly receives a vision here, and he sees not just 2 olive trees, but he sees 2 golden menorah, and here's what he's shown. Remember how it says that there's branches dripping oil into the pipes to fill the bowl? I mean, it doesn't say fill the bowl, but we can assume that's what it is. But you have basically a lampstand with 7, pipes, 7 candles, and you have these 2 pipes going to the trees, and that's what he saw. And it says that these are the 2 anointed ones, okay, who stand before the Lord of the earth. So we're going to look at what the 2 anointed ones are, because the book of Revelation finishes that thought for us. Let's look at chapter 11, verse 3. And I will give power to my 2 witnesses, and they will prophesy 1,260 days clothed in sackcloth. These are the 2 olive trees and the 2 lampstands standing before the God of the earth. That is a direct quote, basically, from Zechariah. And if anyone wants to harm them, fire proceeds from their mouth and devours their enemies. And if anyone wants to harm them, he must be killed in this manner. These have power to shut heaven, so that no rain falls in the days of their prophecy, and they have power over waters to turn them into blood, and to strike the earth with all plagues as often as they desire. So the 2 anointed ones, Yeshua already told us exactly who these 2 are, okay? Because you might be wondering, well, okay, who are these 2 witnesses of Revelation? This is a big mystery, but it's pretty clear, to me anyway. Again, this is speculation, but I'm pretty sure this is it, because I'm going to unpack this for you. Matthew 17:1, he's transfigured. This is what people say. It's kind of a weird word. It is, basically, Yeshua is with Peter, James, and John. He leads them up to a high mountain. This is Matthew 17, verse 1. And he's transfigured before them. That just means that he changed. This is what it says in Matthew 17:2. He was transfigured before them. His face shone like the sun. His clothes became white as light. And behold, Moses and Elijah appeared to them, talking with him. So Moses and Elijah actually showed up and started talking to Yeshua. So that I have to conclude that's who this is talking about with Revelation. And it's interesting. Yeshua said, hey, Peter, James, and John, don't tell anybody about the vision until after I've ascended to my Father. So that's really interesting. That's really interesting. So the 2 olive trees of Revelation, I believe that the 2 olive trees of what Zechariah saw and what we're shown in Revelation, that in fact is Moses and Elijah. Moses represents the house of Judah, and Elijah represents the house of Israel. Again, we have to make the connection back to Ezekiel. And why do I say that Moses represents the house of Judah? Because it says that he was, in Exodus 2, verses 1 and 2, it shows us that he was actually born from Levi. He's from the house of Levi. He was a Levite. But if we look at 1 Kings 17, verse 1, it says, Elijah the Tishbite of the inhabitants of Gilead. So we find out that Gilead, if you look at it in Numbers 32:39, Gilead is a descendant of the sons of Manasseh. Well, I guess I should say, I can't remember if it's Gilead to Machir. Gilead is a place where the sons of Manasseh live. They possess the land. So I guess I said that wrong. Gilead is just a location. Sons of Manasseh inherited it. So Elijah is actually a Manassite. So Elijah would be considered house of Israel, and Moses would be represented as house of Judah. So this is a connection I don't think too many people make, but it's very clear when you look at Ezekiel and you connect that to Zechariah and Revelation. It's not just that these are the 2 anointed ones, but there's a representative from each house. There's a representative from each, kingdom of Israel, the northern and the southern. So just want to share that with you. And then the 2 olive trees of Romans, I think this is where we get really the most clarity of what's being spoken of here. With all the olive tree metaphors, analogies here. Because what we find is very interesting. Before we look at it, though, I forgot I need to mention this too. Okay, you have to remember who Paul was, right? And I've already kind of touched on this a little bit, but Paul, this is what he says about himself in Acts 22, verse 3. I am a Jew, I am indeed a Jew, born in Tarsus of Cilicia, but brought up in this city at the feet of Gamaliel, taught according to the strictness of our father's law, and was zealous toward God as you all are today. And he says in Romans 11:13, I speak to you, Gentiles, inasmuch as I am an apostle to the Gentiles, I magnify my ministry. So before going forward, understand that Paul was trained in the strictness of the law. He was extremely well studied. He was very zealous. He was very, very studied. He probably had, if not all of it, majority of the Torah memorized. A lot of the prophets memorized, literally memorized. And so the question is, why would our Father in heaven send a PhD to a bunch of pagan, heathen, random Gentiles all over the world? But in fact, when it says Gentiles, it's talking about Israeli Gentiles, because he even met in the synagogues to teach them. These people were trying to keep the law, they're trying to keep Torah, but they didn't understand who Yeshua was yet, and that's why Paul and the apostles were sent out. So just keep that in mind. All the Christians, all the big churches teach that, oh yeah, Paul and all the apostles were sent out to a bunch of heathen, random, pagan people that don't even care. They're polytheistic. They have tons of gods. But what the reality is Paul and all these people were apostles to the house of Israel, the lost sheep of the house of Israel. Just to clarify, because when we look at Romans, you have to understand that context. So Romans 10:21, this is the chapter right before Romans 11 when Paul starts talking about the olive trees. And he literally says, he quotes Isaiah. And it says this, but to Israel, he says, God says, all day long I have stretched out my hands to a disobedient and contrary people. So he's quoting Isaiah 65:2. And so here's why I did this. I crossed out the word Israel, and it really should say house of Judah. It should say, so I'm going to define what Paul is actually talking about in Romans. I'm going to define who the subjects are, because once you look at, Isaiah, you understand that he's a prophet to the south. He was a prophet to the southerners, that Judah and Jerusalem. Like he wasn't just a prophet to anybody. So when it says, when Paul is quoting Isaiah 65:2, and it's saying that the disobedient and contrary people, that's actually the house of Judah that's being spoken of there. And so why that's important is because when you go to Romans 11 verse 1, Paul says this, I say then, has God cast away his people? Certainly not, for I also am a southerner from the house of Judah, of the seed of Abraham, of the tribe of Benjamin. For I speak to you, Gentiles from the house of Israel, inasmuch as I am an apostle to the lost sheep of the house of Israel, I magnify my ministry. If by any means I provoke to jealousy those who are my flesh and save some of them. For if their being cast away is the reconciling of the world, what will their acceptance be but life from the dead? For if the first fruit is holy, the lump is also holy, and if the root is holy, so are the branches. And if some of the branches were broken off, and you, Israelite Gentiles, lost sheep of the house of Israel, being a wild olive tree, were grafted in among them, and with them became a partaker of the root and fatness of the olive tree, do not boast against the branches of the house of Judah. But if you do boast, remember that you do not support the root, but the root supports you. You will say then, branches of the house of Judah were broken off, that I might be grafted in. You well said. Because of unbelief, they were broken off, and you stand by faith. Do not be haughty, but fear. For if God did not spare the natural branches, he may not spare you either. Therefore, consider the goodness and severity of God on those who fell. Severity, but toward you goodness, if you continue in his goodness. Otherwise, you will also be cut off. And they also, if they do not continue in unbelief, will be grafted in, for God is able to graft them in again. For if you were cut out of the olive tree, which is wild by nature, house of Israelites, Israelite Gentiles, and were grafted contrary to nature into a cultivated olive tree, how much more will these who are natural branches be grafted back into their own olive tree? For I do not desire, brethren, that you should be ignorant of this mystery, lest you should be wise in your own opinion, that blindness in part has happened to the house of Judah until the fullness of the Israelite Gentiles has come in. Yes, I definitely retranslated a lot of stuff there that's not well translated into the English from the Greek. I did that on purpose, and if you want to check me on that, just open your Bible and go, listen to that again. But it's very clear that Paul is telling us the wild olive are exiled Israelite Gentiles because of what Hosea 1:6 said. I will no longer have mercy on the house of Israel, but I will utterly take them away. That's why they became wanderers among the Gentiles. Hosea 7:8 says, Ephraim, which is the same thing as the house of Israel, has mixed himself among the peoples. Ephraim is a cake unturned. Israel, this is Hosea 8:8, Israel is swallowed up, now they're among the Gentiles, like a vessel in which is no pleasure. Hosea 8:8 is beautiful because it tells us that's why they're called Gentiles in the New Testament. Hosea 9:16, Ephraim is stricken, the root is dried up, they shall bear no fruit. Yes, were they to bear children, I would kill the darlings of the womb. And then Hosea 9:17, my God will cast them away because they did not obey him. They shall be wanderers among the Goy, among the Goyim, among the nations, among the Gentiles. And how true is it today? I mean, you look around you, right? Talk to your friends, family, talk to, coworkers, talk to just random people, in Western countries. And this describes them perfectly. Hosea 8:12, I have written for him great things of my law, but they were considered a strange thing. Whenever I talk to my family, whatever, just people that I come across, they always think that God's laws are super strange and just weird. Why would you do that? I'm not a Jew. That is the number one excuse that people give me. Well, I'm not a Jew. Why would I do all that stuff? It's like, well, it's God's laws. God's laws don't discriminate. They're not racist. It's for everybody. Oh, but I'm not a Jew. And just don't get it. They just don't get God's law. It's considered a strange thing. Hosea told us that's just the spiritual condition of these people called northerners, called Gentiles, called lost sheep of the house of Israel, on and on. Ephraim. So the two olive trees of Romans. When you look at what is being spoken of here, look at my diagram. I think I've laid this out really well. United Nation of the spiritual Israel. Both houses. That's the tree on the left. It's both houses. It's a spiritual Israel. There's branches that are broken off because they do not believe. Those are from the house of Judah. They're unbelievers. They're broken off. And the wild olive tree is separate. It's already broken off. You see what I'm saying? That's why it doesn't say that the Israelite Gentiles were broken off. Those branches that's our different tree. Like they've been exiled. I will scatter them among the Gentiles, right? But they can be grafted back in. That wild olive can be grafted back in through belief. Belief in Yeshua. Belief and understanding of the new covenant, going back into covenant with God, being accepted again, having their sins forgiven. They can be brought back in. They can experience that first resurrection we talked about in the last episode. They can be brought back in. Believers from the house of Israel can be grafted into the spiritual united nation of Israel. And Judah can also be grafted back in. They can be brought back in if they believe in the Messiah, if they believe in his words, if they understand the new covenant, if they want to keep his laws and be part of that spiritual house of Israel. This is so clear. This is what this diagram shows us. And so the process of grafting is really simple. You literally just take twigs and you just you can use different solutions to increase the uptake, or the rooting, or basically the propagation from one cutting to the actual branch. But you just wrap tape, you tie it together, and that's the process of grafting. It's actually really easy, but like I said, you can use chemicals, you can do different techniques to kind of speed it up. So people put bags and fill the bags with soil and then wrap the bag kind of loosely to let airflow go in. And what that does is it allows the roots to have a medium to really grow in. And there's different ways to graft, different techniques. So anyways, let's look at the coming regathering. Now that we've laid that foundation of the spiritual Israel, both houses, and we talked about the regathering, right? We've already talked about it a little bit in Ezekiel 37, but let's look at it in a deeper way, because look at all these scriptures, man. This is unbelievable. There's so many scriptures. This is not an all-inclusive list. Like I said at the beginning, this is the most talked about prophecy in all of the Bible. And honestly, I had been intimidated to even touch it up until I finally got all these pieces of the 70 Shabuah figured out. I finally got all the little nuances, the 1,000-year reign. Until I got all that really out there and laid that foundation, I didn't even want to touch this. This is overwhelming. Seriously. I mean, all the way from Deuteronomy 30, verse 4, it's talking about the regathering. It's everywhere. But remember what it says in Ezekiel 37:21. Then say to them, thus says Yehovah Elohim, surely I will take the children of Israel from among the nations, wherever they have gone, and I will gather them from every side and bring them into their own land. This is exactly what Yeshua said. And he will send, this is Matthew 24:31, he will send his angels with a great sound of a trumpet, and they will gather together his elect from the four winds, from one end of heaven to the other. The elect being those people from the house of Israel and Judah scattered throughout the world. So again, Matthew 24:15-31 gives us a timeline. I haven't shown you this yet. This is really cool. On the left, you see, so it's an arrow going up and down, 70th Shabua. So this is a little different style of a timeline than I've done, but if you just look at it, it makes sense, right? Aviv 1996 to Aviv 2045. That's the time period that we're living in right now, the 70th week of Daniel. You look at 2023 being, the date of the abomination of desolation. I already told you that at the beginning of this episode. You can learn more about that in the podcast. Abomination of desolation, September 22nd, 2023. Matthew 24:15 is where we're told the details of that, okay? So that's where this timeline is going to begin, the abomination of desolation, because immediately after that, it says, the sun is darkened, the moon will not give its light, the stars fall, powers of heaven shaken. That's what it says, right? Then after that, the sign of the Son of Man will appear. All tribes will mourn. Yeshua comes on the clouds. Then angels are sent to gather the elect from the four winds of the earth. So this regathering cannot happen next year, right? There's a lot of stuff that's going to happen before the 12 tribes are gathered back into the land of Israel and they're going to be at peace. There's a lot of stuff that's going to happen. So let's unpack it. But since we've already talked about, Matthew 24 a lot, and I've shown you a lot of New Testament references, we're going to do something a little special today. We're going to look at Old Testament scriptures. Okay? And this will tie into the regathering, because you can't just look at like we can't skip to Matthew 24:31 until you understand what's kind of going on before the regathering happens. And I'm going to show you from Ezekiel 7 and Jeremiah 30 that the time of Jacob's trouble is right after the abomination of desolation. This is what it says in Ezekiel 7. The word of Adonai came to me. This is from the Tree of Life version. The word of Adonai came to me, saying, you, son of man, thus says Adonai Elohim concerning the land of Israel. The end has come on the four corners of the land. The end is upon you. I will send my anger on you. I will judge you according to your ways. I will bring all your abominations on you. My eyes will not spare you, nor will I have pity, but I will bring your ways upon you, your abominations in your midst. Then you will know that I am Yehovah. Thus says Yehovah Elohim. A singular evil. Behold, it comes. Let me pause right there. I think this is talking about the abomination of desolation, because look how he describes it next. And why would he call it a singular evil? This sounds to me like this is exactly the abomination of desolation. This is what it says in verse 6 of chapter 7 of Ezekiel. An end has come. The end has come. It has awakened against you. Look, it is coming. Doom has come upon you, inhabitant of the land. The time has come. The day is near. Panic, not joyful shouting on the hills. Now, soon, I am about to pour out my fury on you. I will exhaust my anger on you. I will judge you according to your ways. I will bring all your abominations on you. My eye will not spare you, nor will I have pity. I will repay you for your ways. Your abominations are in your midst. Then you will know that it is I, Yehovah, who strikes. Behold, the day, look, it is coming. Doom has gone out, the rod has budded, arrogance has blossomed, violence grows into a rod of wickedness. Nothing will come from them, nothing from their crowd, and nothing from their tumult, nothing distinctive among them. To me, this is talking about the abomination of desolation because it says a singular evil. Behold, it comes. This is not Gog and Magog, because when they're regathered and then Gog and Magog happens, they're righteous. Like, they're already at peace. Like, good, life is good. So the people are in a state of wickedness. The inhabitants of the land are in a state of wickedness. To me, this is right now. A singular evil is about to happen. And then it says in verse 14, if we go a little bit further, skip ahead, it says this. They have blown the horn. They have made everyone ready, yet no one goes to battle. Surely my wrath is on her whole crowd. Outside is the sword, inside plague and famine. Whoever is in the field will die by the sword. Whoever is in the city will be devoured by famine and plague. Those survivors who escape will head for the mountains, like doves of the valleys, all of them moaning, each one over his iniquity. All hands will be feeble. All knees will turn to water. They will also gird on sackcloth. Horror will cover them. Shame will be upon their faces. Baldness will be upon all their heads. Look what it says. Look what I have underlined. The survivors who escape are gonna head for the mountains. That's exactly what Yeshua said in Matthew 24:16. Let those who are in Judea flee to the mountains. So what I'm saying is, this is the abomination of desolation to me. You can disagree if you'd like, for sure. Study it, check it. But to me, this is abomination of desolation talk. So let's look at the time of Jacob's trouble, which is right after the abomination of desolation. Let me show you. Jeremiah 30, verse 3. Behold, the days are coming, says Yehovah, that I will bring back from captivity my people Israel and Judah, says Yehovah, and I will I will cause them to return to the land that I gave to their fathers, and they shall possess it. Now, these are the words that the Lord spoke concerning Israel and Judah. For thus says Yehovah, we have heard a voice of trembling, of fear, not peace. We ask now and see whether a man is ever in labor with child. So, why do I see every man with his hands on his loins, like a woman in labor, and all faces turn pale? Alas, for that day is great. There is so that none is like it, and it is the time of Jacob's trouble. But he shall be saved out of it. For it shall come to pass in that day, says Yehovah of hosts, that I will break his yoke from your neck and will burst your bonds. Foreigners shall no longer or no more enslave them. Isn't it really clear what it's talking about there? Right? The people have not been regathered yet. This is not Gog and Magog talk. Look what it says about the abomination of desolation. It says the day is great, so that none is like it. And it is a time of Jacob's trouble. This is so insane. This is so insane. This is so interesting. We're literally about to enter the time of Jacob's trouble next year. But it says, he shall be saved out of it. Most likely it's just talking about the remnant there. And let's look at some more verses. This is Luke 21:20. Remember, I already showed you this. But when you see Jerusalem surrounded by armies, then know that its desolation is near. And this mirrors Zechariah 14:1. Behold, the day of the Lord is coming, and your spoil will be divided in your midst. For I will gather all nations to battle against Jerusalem. The city shall be taken, the houses rifled, the women ravished. Half of the city shall go into captivity, but the remnant of the people shall not be cut off from the city. So it's saying half the city is going to go into captivity. There's going to be captivity, and it literally says in Jeremiah 30, verse 8, if we go back, that the yoke is going to be broken, the bonds are going to be broken, foreigners are not going to enslave Israel or Judah anymore, and it's just basically showing us captivity is going to happen after next year. Not necessarily after, but during and going into 2024. 2023, 2024, captivity is already going on. So we looked at the first part of the timeline, Ezekiel 7, Jeremiah 37. So Daniel 8:14. Okay, that's where we're going next. The 2300 days are completed. Remember, I already showed you this. If it doesn't make sense, you have to go back and watch the foundation of this podcast, which is episodes 2 through 7. But the 2300 days of hell, the 2300 days and nights of Daniel 8:14 are completed on June 28th, 2026. Then the two witnesses will begin their work for 42 months, ending on December 9th, 2029. That's what I'm going to show you next. Because remember what I showed you. The United States, Israel, UK, Europe, Latin America, all the places where the 12 tribes have been scattered, they are going to be under severe judgment. They already have been since March 11th, 2020, but it's going to last until June 28th, 2026. And if you look at Daniel 8:14, remember, it says, it uses the word sanctuary there. He said to me, for 2,300 days, then the sanctuary shall be cleansed. That word is actually Kodesh, which is translated as holy. And if we have the right context, it just means the holy 12 tribes, this anointed, the set apart 12 tribes, okay? Because even if they're wicked, they're still considered set apart. Because they're part of, they've been under a covenant. They haven't been obeying their end of the bargain, but that's unrelated. They're still considered holy. They're still considered set apart. So again, they're going to be considered cleansed in the year 2026. What that means is to be justified, to have a right cause. And so they're only justified after this date. And so what I'm saying is, my theory, again, this is theory, but I have a lot of evidence to support it. The two witnesses of Revelation and Zechariah are going to appear either exactly on the day or shortly after June 28th, 2026. Revelation 11:2 says that the holy city will be treaded underfoot by the Gentiles for 42 months. And it also says that I will give power to my 2 witnesses, and they will prophesy 1,260 days clothed in sackcloth. 42 months is the same exact number as 1,260 days. If you do the math, that brings us, if you add that number to the time that the 12 tribes are considered justified, they able to be justified, have a just cause, you add the 1260 to June 28th, 2026, you get Sunday, December 9th, 2029, and remember what I told you. Okay, this is what I explained about the burning bush. This was what episode was this? Episode 5? It was the 120 cycles episode when I talk about the 120 cycles of mankind. There's a connection of Moses and Aaron in their ministry when they said, "Hey, Pharaoh, let my people go. I'm going to bring down plagues." There's a connection there to the 2 witnesses. Just like Moses and Aaron did their work for 3.5 years, these 2 witnesses are also going to do their work for 3.5 years. And that's exactly what we're shown in Revelation. And I believe that they're going to be saying, "Let my people go." And they're going to be bringing down plagues and judging the nations that have actually put all the 12 tribes into captivity, servitude, and slavery. So, yeah, it's not looking good. From 2023, September 22nd, all the way to 2026, June 28th, 2026, there's going to be a period of slavery. The 2 witnesses are going to show up and they're going to say, "Let my people go." That's what I'm seeing. That's the pattern I'm seeing here. And so what it says, Ezekiel 38:8, they're going to be brought back from the sword. The people are going to be brought back from the sword and gathered from many people on the mountains of Israel, which had long been desolate. They were brought out from the nations, and now all of them dwell safely, right? So Moses and Elijah will be the 2 witnesses sent to demand the release of the 12 tribes of Israel. Again, so many churches, denominations teach that 1948 in the UN after World War II, giving the modern day land of Israel to people called Jews, most of them are Ashkenaz Jews, that was the fulfillment of Ezekiel 38 and all these verses? Hell no. Not even close, man. Because it says that all of them are going to dwell safely. That's Ezekiel 38:8. It says right there, all of them dwell safely. That is 100% fake teaching. I don't have time to get into it this episode, but I'm going to show you what the modern day land of Israel, how it's talked about. I'm going to show you very specific verses. And I'm also going to show you some stuff about the third temple. That'll be next episode. But it's very clear. This hasn't happened yet. Okay, they're going to dwell safely. And then Moses and Elijah are going to be the 2 witnesses sent to demand the release. Just like Moses and Aaron were back in the day. In Isaiah 27:13, it shall be in that day, the great trumpet will be blown. They will come who are about to perish in the land of Israel, and they who are outcasts in the land of Egypt, and shall worship the Lord in the holy mountain at Jerusalem. That has not happened. Okay, that just has not happened. So let's take a look at Isaiah 27:3, because we're going to talk about the regathering now on the timeline here. We're going to look at the verses that parallel the gathering of the elect from the 4 winds. There's a lot there. So let's look at Matthew 24:30 and Revelation 14:14. It says that Yeshua comes on the clouds. You already know what that means because I showed you in the last episode, the 1,000-year reign. I showed you what that really means when he's coming on the clouds. He is no longer seated. Yeshua is no longer seated at the right hand of the Father. So when it says that he's coming on the clouds, that his forever and ever reign is beginning, and his 1,000-year reign that we're in right now is coming to an end. That's really, really clear. And it says, Revelation 14:14, then I looked, and behold, a white cloud, and on this cloud sat one like the Son of Man, having on his head a golden crown, and in his hand a sharp sickle. And another angel came out of the temple, crying with a loud voice to him who sat on the cloud, thrust in your sickle and reap, for the time has come for you to reap, for the harvest of the earth is ripe. So he who sat on the cloud thrust in his sickle on the earth, and the earth was reaped. Remember, this is a good harvest. There's 2 harvests in Revelation chapter 14. The harvest, the grapes of wrath, the harvest of wrath, that's Gog and Magog. That's different. But this first harvest, which I really don't see too many commentators talk about, this is the gathering of the elect from all 12 tribes of Israel. I told you last episode, I think that's what it is. I'm pretty sure it is. That, again, my speculation, but I'm pretty sure that's what it's talking about there. Because it literally says that he's going to come on the clouds, and then the angels are sent to gather the elect from the 4 winds. That's what Matthew shows us. If we really follow Yeshua's words to interpret end times prophecy, which is like the standard, the golden rule of this channel, we don't deviate from Yeshua's words. We use him, the Word made flesh, the revelation made, of the Word made flesh. We look at what he says and we can figure out all these end times prophecies. No problem. Honestly, yes, it's a mystery. It's the honor of kings to search out what God has hidden, but it's really straightforward when you just really take his word seriously and literally when you need to, and figuratively when they're supposed to be figurative. So again, look at the parallels here. Sound of a trumpet. Yeshua is going to send his angels with the sound of a trumpet. That's what he said in Matthew 24:31, and that's exactly what you see in Isaiah 27:13. The great trumpet will be blown, then those who are about to perish in the land of Assyria will come. The outcasts in the land of Egypt will come, and they're going to worship Yehovah at the holy mountain of Jerusalem, at Jerusalem. Again, it's just the parallels here are unmistakable. It's so clear as day that there's parallels, and he's going to be on the cloud, and then that trumpet's going to sound, and they're going to be gathered. So let's look at why this is called the Greater Exodus. Look what it says in Jeremiah 23:7. The days are coming. Behold, the days are coming, says Yehovah, that they shall no longer say, as the Lord lives, who brought up the children of Israel from the land of Egypt. But as Yehovah lives, who brought up and led the descendants of the house of Israel from the north country, and from all the countries where I had driven them, and they shall dwell in their own land. This is why it's called the Greater Exodus, because it's no longer the old Exodus of Moses and Aaron all the way back in the day. It's going to be obviously important history. It's always going to be something that we're going to remember. But God is no longer going to be remembered as the God of the Egypt Exodus. He's going to be known as the God of the Greater Exodus, where all these countries let the people go, and they were gathered back in their own land. So this is what Isaiah shows us what the regathering will look like. Isaiah 11:13. Also the envy of Ephraim, the northern house of Israel, shall depart. The adversaries of Judah shall be cut off. Ephraim shall not envy Judah, and Judah shall not harass Ephraim. So the north and south are finally going to get along. Isaiah 11:14. But they shall fly down upon the shoulder of the Philistines towards the west. Together they shall plunder the people of the east. They shall lay their hand on Edom and Moab, and the people of Ammon shall obey them. Yehovah will utterly destroy the tongue of the sea of Egypt. That's most likely talking about the Nile River Delta. With his mighty wind he will shake his fist over the river and strike it in the 7 streams, and make men cross over dry shod. Actually, I take that back. The Sea of Egypt. I wonder, that's probably the Red Sea, or the Red Sea. Anyways, probably misspoke there. I was thinking about something else. Isaiah 11:16. There will be a highway from the remnant of his people who will be left from Assyria, as it was for Israel in the day that he came up from the land of Egypt. So it looks like they're going to be crossing over the Red Sea. They're going to be crossing over, it looks like the Euphrates is being talked about here. I'd have to look at it again. It's a lot of scriptures today. It's even a lot for me. But it's going to be struck into 7 streams, and people are going to cross over what was rivers. They're going to cross over dry shod, is the word here, dry land. That's pretty amazing. It's literally like the Greater Exodus is very similar to the original Exodus. It's a pattern. Again, God works in patterns. But then look what happens when everybody is regathered. Look what it says. Look what it says. Ezekiel 20, verse 34, I will bring you out from the peoples and gather you out of the countries where you are scattered, with a mighty hand and an outstretched arm, and with fury poured out. And I will bring you into the wilderness of the peoples, and there I will plead my case with you face to face. Just as I pleaded my case with your fathers in the wilderness of the land of Egypt, so I will plead my case with you, says Yehovah Elohim. I will make you pass under the rod, and I will bring you into the bond of the covenant. I will purge the rebels from among you, and those who transgress against me. I will bring them out of the country where they dwell, but they shall not enter the land of Israel. Then you will know that I am Yehovah. Ooh, you see, okay. This is really important stuff, because the tares and the wheat haven't been separated yet. Again, it just shows you that the harvest of Revelation 14 is just a different harvest than the tares and the wheat at the very end of the age that Yeshua told us about. This is a different harvest. This is the harvest of the regathering of the 12 tribes, and there's still going to be transgressors. He's going to have to deal with them face to face. He's going to make the 12 tribes pass under the rod. And even though, think about how ungrateful these people are going to be, some of them. Think about how ungrateful. They're released from captivity. These amazing plagues and these amazing miracles come down from the two witnesses. And there's still going to be rebels among the people? Unbelievable. It just shows you the heart of man, how stubborn and wicked they are. But also, remember this as we go into the future here. If we're counted worthy, if we're, blessed, if we're still alive and we're counted to be among this regathering event, the rebels, there's going to be rebels among us, right? There's going to be people where a command is given and they're going to be screwing around, not doing what God says. I've seen this before. I have met the rebels. I have met rebels in my life that say that they're Israelite. They say they're Hebrew. They say they do the Torah. They say they follow Yeshua. But man, they have no fruit to show for it. That's going to continue. That is going to continue until they're purged. And literally, Yeshua is going to have to deal with them face to face when he comes on the cloud. This is a big prophecy. It just shows you there's so much meat in here. I don't have time to unpack all of it. But remember, here's an overview, right? Here's an overview of what I'm saying. You got the house of Israel on the left. You have that olive tree. You have the house of Judah on the right. That olive tree is going to become one nation again. And as soon as they're dealt with face to face, as soon as the rebels are purged, they're brought under the rod into the bond of the covenant. That's the moment right there. That's the moment where their sins, their iniquity will be forgiven, and their sin will be remembered no more. This will be fulfilled sometime after Sunday, December 9th, 2029. Sometime after 2029, this is going to be fulfilled according to everything that I've shown you from the 70 Shabua, from the 1,000-year reign episode, like everything leading up to this. Finally, we can talk about the regathering. I've been wanting to talk about this for a while. I did a survey, right, inside of the Telegram. I did a survey and I was like, hey, what do you guys really want me to cover? I have all these topics. I have this. And everybody's like, oh, do a regathering. And it was overwhelming, right? Everybody wanted an episode on the regathering, but I just could not get to it until I really laid a solid foundation to get rid of a lot of the fake news, a lot of these ideas that, that are just false about the scriptures, about prophecy. And when we just stick with the 70 Shabu, we stick with Yeshua's words, we stick so closely with what we've been shown from Yeshua, the Word made flesh, and what he's revealed to us, we can finally understand and put together a really solid timeline of what the regathering is going to look like, the time of Jacob's trouble is going to look like. And again, I have it on screen for you right here. This is what we're looking at. I'm going to do more deeper dives on this because there's a few more connections I have not made yet. And, I'm currently researching, investigating them. But we're going to do an even deeper dive on the Matthew 24 timeline, the verses 15 to 31 timeline. There's a little bit more meat here. Like the woman in the wilderness, how does that work? Like there's a revelation. Like there's certain things that I haven't unpacked yet. We're going to do more. But I think for now, this is a pretty good starting point. And I think hopefully you can understand the regathering way better. I've heard other Bible teachers talk about this topic over the years. And I don't know, they over-spiritualize it. Like everybody talks about the spiritual aspect, but they never really talk about the physical, literal, prophetic regathering, like streams like being made dry land. Like nobody talks about all the little nuances of it and puts together like a pretty solid timeline. So hopefully this has been a blessing for you. Hopefully that this has opened your eyes to really see what the scriptures show and what they teach. And as far as the abomination of desolation goes, I think we've also hit some verses that are really heavy duty, pretty scary. But again, cling to Yehovah with all your heart, mind, and soul. Worship him. Fall at your feet. Call upon the name of Yeshua. And continue to ask him to lead, guide you, and repent of your sins. And he will accept you. That's a promise. He said, turn from your sins. I will receive you. And this is just the way it is. So as long as we're faithful to show up and open that door, he's knocking. Let's open that door and let's let him right on in. Let's have communion with our Father and let him teach us all his words and enter into that bond of the covenant now and be blessed. Trust me, we're super early. Anybody listening to this podcast, anybody is super early to the table here. We're so early to the table, and I think we're going to be so blessed because of it. Like I showed you in the 144,000 episode, we're so early to the table, and I think our goal right now should be to try to reach as many people as we can. So share this message, and let's try to help as many people. But really, it's going to be when Yeshua deals with a lot of people face to face, they're finally going to get it because they're still going to be rebellious. Basically almost until the very end. So just keep that in mind, but let's do our best and be faithful witnesses. And so share the message. All right, guys, hope this has been a blessing for you, and I will catch you next time. Shalom. Take care.
in you.